I am back and I am so excited. I took a little hiatus off of YouTube, which we'll get into in another video, because today we are talking about the 10 best and worst books I read in 2022. We're gonna start with the 10 best books I read this year because I'm so excited to talk about these books. We're gonna do like my 10th ranking to my first ranking. So the last book I talk about is gonna be my absolute favorite book of the year. I only rated 2 books this year, a full 5 out of 5 stars, because I'm picky with those 5 stars. They need to be absolutely perfect books for me to rate them a full 5 out of 5. But most of these like top 10 books I have rated 4 out of 5s, which in my ranking basically means that they were almost 5 out of 5s, but again, I'm picky. So first book I want to talk about is Angels and Demons by Dan Brown. This is part of the Robert Langdon series, which some of these books have become movies. So I think this book is a movie, and then so is The Da Vinci Code. Both of those movies and books are so good. Basically, one day the main character, Robert Langdon, gets a call to fly in and analyze the symbol that was burned onto a murdered man's chest. The symbol turns out to be from a brotherhood called the Illuminati, and basically he has to run around Vatican City to try to piece the clues together to find this bomb that the brotherhood hid underneath the Vatican City, which, if you don't know, the Vatican City is like the Catholic Church like headquarters of the world basically, and this brotherhood is like anti-church. So it's really interesting. It also has a little bit of history mixed in with it, which I didn't think I would like because I'm not a huge history person, but I think Dan Brown did it in such a way that I thought it was so interesting because you get these pieces of history that are true mixed in with this fiction novel. So good. I really enjoyed it. This was actually my most shelved book on Goodreads, which if you're not on Goodreads basically just means that this was a really popular book. Next up, another book that was turned into a movie. This is My Policeman. I have a whole video about books that have become movies or TV shows, which I will link in the eye and in the description for you guys, but I really enjoyed how this book was written. It's almost as if it's written in a diary, which I think one of the point of views literally is a diary. It's set in the 1950s and it's kind of a love triangle. I say kind of because the main character is gay and he decides to get married because, you know, at this time being gay was illegal. So you get the point of view from the wife and then also from his like lover. Very interesting. The ending was so good, and the movie stars Harry Styles. So honestly, that's pretty much why I read this book. I was like, I am 100% the kind of person that's like, I need to read it before I watch the movie. So it was like, I need to read the book. I've yet to see the movie, to be honest, but I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna get around to it. Okay, my next 2 books, I put them together. They're ranked like 7th and 8th out of 10. So this is part of the Winter in Paradise series. So I have the first book in the series, Winter in Paradise, and then What Happens in Paradise, both by Ellen Hildebrandt. The only reason I didn't rank the 3rd one along with this is because I felt like by the time I got to the 3rd book, things in the 3rd book were moving a little bit slower than they needed to, which was really aggravating because I just wanted to know what happened. So that's why I didn't include the 3rd book in here. I did like it though. Anyways, this series is basically about a family that gets a call that the dad died. He died in the Virgin Islands and they are confused because they didn't even know that he was there. So they go to the Virgin Islands and they uncover this whole secret life that he led on the islands, and so they have to deal with that, but then they also end up meeting locals on the island and there's some romantic connections, which I really liked. So it was a little bit of romance mixed with mystery, and to me that was like the perfect combination. I really enjoyed this. Next up, I have a surprising one. It's a classic. It is The Awakening by Kate Shotland. It was written in 1899, quite the old book, and normally I don't do well with classics. I did listen to this one. It was an audiobook. I think I found it on YouTube honestly, but I found that if I'm trying to read a classic, listening to it is a lot easier for me than actually like sitting down and reading it. Something about classics stressed me out, but this one was so good, so worth the read. It is known as one of the first feminist fiction novels, which I think that's probably why I liked it. It basically follows a young woman named Edna. She is married with 2 kids and she feels a lot of pressure to be that stereotypical stay-at-home mom that cares for the kids while the dad goes off to work. But then she has, you know, her awakening and she starts to despise this stereotypical motherly role that she is put in. And so that kind of is what causes, you know, a bunch of her life decisions from that point on. I don't want to say anything else because I don't want to spoil the book, but I thought it was so good. It had one of those endings where I literally rewinded the audiobook and I was like, did I hear that right? It took me by surprise. It might not have taken other people by surprise, but we are now in top 5 category. My next book is 9 Perfect Strangers by Liane Moriarty. I think that this is a TV show on Hulu. I'm not 100% sure because I don't have Hulu, but I think it is. Oh, this one had a little twist at the end that I literally was reading and I was like, It was good. I like twists at the end of books, but hold on, I'm getting too far ahead of myself. This is basically about a group of 9 people and they all go to this wellness resort and you get the point of views of each character, which I thought would make that confusing, but she writes it in a way where I can easily distinguish between the characters. I didn't end up mixing up any of the characters in my head, which I am known for doing, honestly. I get confused very easily when there's so many characters narrating. I think there was probably 11 different characters narrating. Basically, you learn the reason why each character felt the need to go into this wellness resort, and then it kind of follows all the crazy wellness type of things that they do in the resort, and then you get that twist at the end, which obviously I'm not going to tell you, but I didn't expect that twist at all. All right, next up, another book with a crazy twist. This twist, unbelievable. This is The Silent Patient. If I could erase my memory and read this book one more time, I would. Oh my gosh, it's so good. This book almost tied for 3rd. It was hard to decide if it should be 3rd or 4th. So good. This was one of my first thrillers that I've read in a very long time, which is honestly why I didn't trust myself to rate it 3rd. But wow, it did not disappoint. It's basically about a woman that is accused of murdering her husband, and because of that, she falls silent. She won't speak to anyone, which is why she ends up in a psych ward. Then comes Theo. He is very determined to be the one to treat her. He even gets a new job at like the psych ward that she's at so that he can treat her. Basically, it is the story of Theo trying to heal her, but then you also get, you know, like the background of Theo and his life story, which I just thought was so interesting. And then the ending is shocking. To this day, I still can't stop thinking about it. Next up, Daisy Jones and the Six. I am so excited for this to become a movie. So excited. This is one of the most unique books that I've read. It's written in full dialogue, and it's basically about a band and how they function together and everything that they go through together. So basically, obviously you have the band of 6 people, and then their producer decides to put the band with Daisy Jones. And so you get Daisy and Billy bumping heads, and it's just a great portrayal of relationships in this band setting. And I loved reading about like how they interacted with each other. One of my favorite parts was when they would tell a story, something that would happen on tour, and the members would kind of remember it just slightly differently. That just made it feel so much more realistic. I literally thought that this band was real for the whole first half of the book, so much so that I looked them up on Apple Music and I asked my dad if he's ever heard of this band. Then I realized it's a fake band, but it was so realistic that I thought it was real. Definitely one of those books that I would recommend reading before the movie, but you know how I am. I just think you should read all the books before the movies. All right, now we are in 5 out of 5 territory. My last 2 books. We have Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. This is a great quick summer read. I wish I had read this on the beach. I did read it during summer, which I just feel like summer reads like this, perfect for the summer. Like, you have to read them in the summer. How many times am I going to say summer? This is Dual Timelines. It's about 2 families that have a lake house. They're neighbors. They both have children around the same age. So they are best friends, and then obviously this friendship turns into a little bit more, so it's best friends to lovers, but then it's also second chance because the 2 timelines in the present, they're not together, they're about to see each other again for the first time in years, and you know, you eventually learn what happened to break up their relationship. A great summer read. Now we are at what I would deem my best favorite book that I read in 2022. Another romance. So it's about this woman that is having an affair and she wakes up in the hospital with no memory of it. So obviously her husband and her family don't really want her to get that side of her memory back. So they're kind of, you know, very hush-hush about what she was like before she lost all of her memory, you know, because they don't want her to remember that she was having an affair. This was also 2 timelines, which was done perfectly. I think the timelines was actually from 2 different people. Correct me if I'm wrong. This book I read very early in 2022, so I don't remember every aspect of it, but I remember reading like the little small twist at the end and the story coming absolutely full circle and being like, wow, this book, amazing. I remember not being able to like put it down for 2 days straight. All I wanted to do was read, which I was like, everything else can wait. I'm gonna finish this book. It's so good. Anyway, normally the whole affair thing I don't like, but this was different. It was beautiful. Okay, now on to the worst books I read this year. We're gonna do the same thing, starting with the least worst to the most worst. I only have 5 books that I deemed were the worst this year. They are the only 5 books that I rated a 2 out of 5, which for me, a a 2 out of 5. Like, I won't rate a book lower than that, to be honest. A 2 out of 5 means I really hated the book. We're actually gonna start off with a short story. I just didn't relate to the character. This is Stationary Bike. Again, it's technically a short story, but I still wanted to talk about it. This was basically about a man that goes to the doctor, and the doctor is like, you're overweight, you need to, you know, exercise. So he starts cycling every day, and he like quickly just becomes addicted to it. And this is the part where I was like, what? Because I've taken so many cycling classes. I've tried to get into cycling so many times, and honestly, I hate it. Like, I don't know how people could like it, to be honest. I'm sorry if you like cycling. Good for you, because cycling, great. Good workout. But for me, I'm uncomfortable. It's too hard. I don't like it. Anyways, that's what made him so unrelatable. I was like, the whole time I was reading this, I was like, how do you enjoy being on a bike? Like, the stationary bikes are different. Like, they're so much harder. Anyways, he is so addicted to it that while he's on it, he starts like daydreaming. And something about the way that like the daydreaming versus real life was written, I honestly could barely tell what was daydream and what was not. And I don't like when I have to like think about the book when it's like a fiction novel. I want to just be able to read and enjoy it. Next is another classic. It is As I Lie Dying by William Faulkner. Classics are hard for me. So that might be part of why I didn't like this one. I also listened to it, which made it hard to distinguish the narrators because I felt like they had too many different narrators. It felt like each chapter would focus on a different character, and it would have a different character narrate it, and it just felt like too many characters were narrating, which is why I felt like it was hard to distinguish between the characters. There was a lot of weird parts of the plot that just left me like, what? I was just confused by a lot of the parts. Like, for example, one of the little kids, he catches a fish the day like his mom dies. That's not a spoiler. You know the whole novel that the mom's gonna die. He catches this fish on the day that she dies, and he starts to get confused about the fish. Like, he literally thinks the fish is his mom, and that really confused me. I didn't understand that at all. I just didn't understand what William Faulkner was trying to portray with this fish and this kid and the mom and that whole situation. Also, the mom wanted to be buried 40 miles away, so they have to walk the body 40 miles, and it takes them so long that the body starts to decay and be eaten by bugs. That is just not something I want to read about, not something I want to listen to. That put me off to this book a lot. Okay, next up is How to Bury Your Brother by Lindsay Rogers Cook. I was very disappointed by this one because the synopsis made it sound so good. It basically follows a woman named Alice whose brother runs away from home at 15, never to be seen by her or talk to her ever again, and they had a very close relationship as kids, which made it very hard for her, and she struggles most of her life with the fact that he ran away, so much so that she makes major life-changing decisions to try to find him again. He dies. That's not a spoiler. It happens very early on in the book, but when he dies, he leaves these letters for his friends. And so basically she hand delivers all of these letters because she wants to talk to everyone he knew, and she wants to find out, you know, why he ran away and what he did when he ran away, things like that. I felt like it really lacked like the kind of thriller excitement that it needed for me to really enjoy it, and I felt like it did not come even close to being full circle at the end, which I needed out of a novel. I love when books come full circle at the end, everything ties together and makes sense. This book did not do that. Next one is Anatomy of a Scandal by Sarah Vaughan. This is about a woman and her husband is accused of just horrible crime. I think you get 3 point of views and you get the past and present timelines, which I really liked how the timelines were written, but it was such a hard topic to read about and the ending was horrible. I think why I really didn't like it was how it ended. The ending was just not it. It is such a hard topic to read about. I'm not going to say much more about it because there's a lot of trigger warnings in this book. It's a very heavy read, so that's why I didn't like it, but I can definitely see why a lot of people like it. Okay, my top worst book of the year is Breathless. This book was translated from Swedish to English, I think. It was definitely translated. I can't remember exactly what it was translated from, and I mention that only because I don't know if that is what made it lose, you know, something, but I think the age gap is just what made me so uncomfortable. It's about 2 kids that are ages 6 and 13, and the girl is the one that's 6 years old, and they become like best friends. But then this friendship, you know, turns to more. They don't do anything until she is of age, but still that made me so uncomfortable because that is such a giant age difference. And I was like, this whole time I was reading, I was like, these are kids. Like, this is uncomfortable. The whole time I wanted the book to be over with. Literally the only thing I even slightly enjoyed about this book was the ending, which obviously I won't tell you, but such an uncomfortable book, honestly. Okay, everyone, that is it. That is my 10 best and worst books of 2022. I am so excited for my channel in 2023, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of that. Also, let me know what your favorite and least favorite book this year was in the comments below. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!